So, slightly strange experience because A, I'm not wearing my glasses so I can see my notes, and B, I'm still at the other side of the room with a slightly croaky voice. So good afternoon, everyone. Michael Dickson, Chief Executive, Scottish Ambulance Service. I just want to say thank you, actually, because this has been an exceptional day. It's been really well organised, really well put together, both from the organising team and also the sponsors that have been involved in supporting this. It's been exceptional. You should be really proud. Now, one of the things about working at Scottish Ambulance Service is it is an absolute privilege every single day. People come up to me, honestly, it's quite a random experience. People come up to me and go, "Oh my God, you guys are fantastic. I had to call you in the middle of the night." The people came down, they were hugely caring, they took the time, they listened to what we had, they understood what the problem was. Even including a gentleman called the Lord Lion, if not the best title of the world, I don't know what else is, at Parliament on Saturday, who praised Scottish Ambulance Service as being the unsung hero of Project Unicorn, which, if anybody doesn't know, is not the very secret plan of what happens when the monarch dies. But just that recognition of the impact that ambulance service has on people's lives day in, day out, it is incredible. We have a hugely dedicated team made up of people working in our ambulance control centres, volunteers, and those crews out on the road. It's incredible. It is a fantastic organisation to work for, and it's a privilege to be there. So today we've heard a huge amount of information about the importance of CPR and why it makes such a difference during that time of cardiac arrest. But just a quick comparison. How does a cardiac arrest compare to other conditions with a similar sort of 3,000 circa events occurring a year? So we all are very familiar with a number of these conditions. Coronary heart disease is a perfect example. That costs the NHS £950 million a year in Scotland alone, and the long-term care costs £42.5 billion. That is just an incredible amount of money. Heart disease is another COPD is £159 million. Again, a huge amount of money. And dementia, £2.2 billion in care costs. Now, the fact is these are often comorbidities that patients who experience a cardiac arrest will have to go through, have already. But there's also a public recognition aspect to this. So many of you may have walked up the street when you were getting your way here, and you'll see many charity shops with well-known charities that cover British Heart Foundation, dementia cares, these factors that the public will be aware of. I would question how many people would be aware of cardiac arrest. And equally, the often factor that we see where people talk about a heart attack being the same as a cardiac arrest. The confusion that occurs means that it's often difficult to get the message across. And those consequences of those, when we're talking about support for patients after the event, cannot be underestimated. But these are all parts of the public health factors and challenges we face in Scotland. So my question was, could AI help? Ta-da. So I asked, ChatGPT did a lot of work before this conference. I asked ChatGPT to create an image for me. This is our call to action. It's pretty good, isn't it? That's pretty good. It was quite interesting because over the past couple of weeks, I was at the, I know, there's some detail in there. I was at the robotics centre in Heriot-Watt University, where I genuinely had a conversation with a robot using a large language model and asked it, what could robots do for Scottish Ambulance Service? And it answered me without a pause and said, well, they could be really useful in assessing the patient, in undertaking various triage functions, or even undertaking procedures in the back of an ambulance. No pause at all. And that robot is currently in use in places like amusement parks, and I know that sounds very strange, but we are not that far away from that being able to be deployed in public-facing roles. It also has the ability to be able to speak many different languages without pausing. And if you think about our diverse culture, that could be really important. And the more you train it, the better it gets. I also had exposure to an interesting piece of software from an accountancy firm that when you phone your bank asking for an extension of your overdraft, or you're asking for a loan, it senses on the tone of your voice of whether you are in financial distress or not, and will decide on whether you are eligible for an overdraft or a loan. Now, that on one hand is amazing, on the other hand, equally terrifying. But there is that question, if you think about our ambulance control centres that take those calls, could we use an element of that AI to help us ensure that we are sending the right resource to the right patient, to ensuring they're getting the most appropriate response? It's an interesting question. However, as some of you may have spotted, AI may not be ready for the big time, certainly not in this front, because what we see is some quite creepy faces, some nightmarish faces, and I genuinely have no idea what is going on here. I think that may have been the Bakers conference, that's all I'm saying. So, you've heard incredible information today, absolutely incredible information today, from Shorty telling us about the impacts and the importance of the practice of undertaking CPR, from the outcomes we see if it's done well, the impact of resuscitation, the impact of good defibrillation, and how we could be using different ways to do that. Enormously powerful. But I get you're actually not the right people for these messages, are you? Because you know this. You already know these things. So what I'm going to ask you is to be radical cheerleaders. Okay, that's very different from cheerleaders. Pom-poms are great, gymnastics, they amaze me. But radical cheerleaders are people with a particular action. You're going to go back into your communities, into your workplaces, and start talking about this. We heard earlier about the gym CPR sessions that were done and how well they're received. Can they be done in your local community? Because there's no point having defibrillators. There's no point people being aware of cardiac arrests if they don't know how to do CPR properly, if they don't know how to access the resources to be able to do it well. We know the impact can be done, if it is done properly, can be transformational. We want to make sure that CPR training is everywhere. We want to make sure that people know how to use those defibrillators and use them well. We want to make sure that we have the best and the same public awareness that we see for other conditions, be that from chronic heart disease to COPD to dementia, for people who've experienced cardiac arrest. So go out, be radical cheerleaders, push the message, build beyond your local practice, and really make a difference. But thank you for your contributions today.